a parable. So it's a Friday afternoon, and there's this lady who's stressed out. She's in her car. She's in a hurry to get somewhere. And she's tailgating this man directly in front of her. And suddenly the light turns yellow. And so the guy in front of her hits his brakes, slows to a stop. He could have sped up and gotten through the light, but he did the safe thing, the smart thing. He stopped for the light, but the lady behind him was so angry that he stopped. She laid on her horn and started yelling some four-letter words, just not a good thing. And you and I can probably relate to both those drivers. We've been in that situation before. We stop, we wish somebody hadn't stopped, et cetera, et cetera. So in the middle of her ranting, she hears this tap, tap, tap on the window of her door. She looks up and sees the face of a very serious police officer, and he asks her to exit the car, put her hands on the roof of the car, and he says, "I'm going to take you down to the police station." So he locks her up at the police station. And after a couple of hours, he comes back to the cell and lets her go and takes her to the front and gives her all her personal items. He says to her, "I'm sorry for the mistake. You see, I pulled up behind you as you were ranting and raving and cursing and all that stuff. And I noticed the God loves you frame around your license plate, the What Would Jesus Do bumper sticker, and the First Baptist Church decal on your car. Naturally, I assumed the car was stolen." Who are your role models? I mean, Paul says in Philippians 3, verse 17, a really interesting thing. He says, "Brethren, join in following my example." Is that an arrogant statement from Paul? You see, in those days, those early Christians, they didn't have a mother or a grandmother who'd been a Christian for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So they really didn't have many or any role models and people to look up to. So Paul says, just follow my example. Live your life the way I'm living my life. How did you get your Christian faith? It might be from what some people call neology, meaning you got it from your mom's knee or your dad or grandmother's knee. If you go around Carrollton or wherever you live, you'll see little signs around the house. For instance, on the back porch, backdoor guest or best, and that's a sign indicating hospitality. And there'll be a sign in the kitchen that says kiss the cook and those kind of things. There might be one that says when God closes a door, he opens a window. Some kind of faith statement like that. And so you got your faith just from your mom, your parents, aunts, uncles, people like that, because you had some great role models. I love the What Would Jesus Do thing that was so popular a few years ago. It's a pretty good way to live your life. What would Jesus do? But sometimes you don't know what would Jesus do. And so you read the Gospels and you try to figure it out. But you have other role models besides Jesus in terms of how you live your life. So those early Christians didn't have that, didn't have any of that. They also didn't have a Bible. Have you thought about that? The Bible, as we know it, the New Testament, would not be completed in its present form for about 300 more years. So that was a long process of putting the Bible together. And it certainly even was, when it was finished, wasn't mass produced. So this idea that Christians have a Bible, a New Testament that they can read and have in their homes is still a rather current thing in terms of the 2,000 years of church history. So we can read about Jesus and learn more about them. So Paul says, since you don't have those role models, you don't even have a Bible, follow me as your example. And Paul's trying to follow Jesus, and you try to follow Paul. Not a bad way to live your life. In our country, we pride ourselves on being so independent and being unique. But the truth is, we all imitate other people. We need other people. Guess how we learn to speak? By imitating our parents. When I was growing up, if there was something that you were looking for, and it was right under your nose and you didn't see it, my mother would always say, now if that had been a snake, it would have bitten you. So I said that to Natalie recently, and I got a little chuckle out of her. I learned that from Mom. I'm passing it on to my kid. So how we learn to speak by imitating parents. We learn to walk by imitating, watching others as well. As we get older, we imitate our friends in school. That can be a good thing or a bad thing. Some of the things that we imitate are just innocent, like a southern drawl. If you have a southern drawl, you probably got it from Mom and Dad. Or how you hold your fork. Do you hold it like this or hold it like that? You got that from other people. But there are more important things that we learn from others as well, like work ethic. You get that from parents and siblings and aunts and uncles. How we treat other people. We get that from our role models, right? So our kids are really watching us. And by the way, church attendance. Kids are watching us to see what's really important to us. So the really important things we pick up from other people. So Paul says, hey, you can imitate me, follow my example. Can you say that to others? And by the way, how's your driving?